back and we're talking about what this field used to be and the goal for soil amendments and texture of the soil that we're working with and all those kinds of things. So tell us a little bit about your field.
We're south facing here, which is an important thing if you're growing at a high altitude.
Okay. Now why is that?
Season extension.
Okay.
You need to be where the sun is going to hit you, and it's going to be consistently warm temperature. And if it's frigid, for example, we're going to try and overwinter these snapdragons.
Okay.
You want to be south facing because that's where the light is throughout the winter. It drops.
Sure.
And this whole area, this whole field they were Christmas trees, so they were Fraser firs. They were farmed here, and they have a short crop season for a tree. So I would say maybe max for this area was 10 years. The soil is wonderful. It is a loamy, sandy mix. It's very well drained in most parts.
Yeah, there's no, it's not that tight, compact clay that you can get sometimes.
And low on the rocks too, which is a dream up here. A lot of times you're in rocks, which I use to my advantage. I say they're good for drainage and they have a lot of minerals in them. You just have to release them.
Yeah.
But this area is also not been over farmed, so it doesn't have a lot of weed seed. The weeds that are here.
So over farm, that term means there's just been, every year there's been a lot of different
Crop
kinds
after
of
crop.
crops. Okay.
And in some places people do a crop after crop and they'll start and then they'll let it go to seed, and so the soil ends up being sometimes
Full of all of these other seeds.
Weed seeds, yes, and it's also been leached of its nutrients. You know, if you're gardening in a certain area or if you're farming in a new field that's never been farmed, you will have the most amazing stuff the first year.
Yeah.
But after that year, that's when you really have to deal with what's going on in the soil. So what's going on here is we're on the bottom slope of my field. There is a natural, and I think I've noticed this with a lot of areas when you get to a lower area, is acidity.
Okay.
Acidity is pretty much how the whole eastern coast is acidic soil.
Okay.
You know, if there's been a woodland or swamp, there's acidity. It is what happens when plants break down and decompose. So that's, peat bogs, and that's they are what they are because they're so acidic.
Okay.
There's a little bit of an issue here of acidity in this low area, and it's like it seeps down, and you can amend that with lime, and that's what's already been done to this soil.
Okay.
Before we add the good stuff, the other extras, I've already limed this area because I noticed the acidity.
Yeah, and you didn't really need to do any amendments to the texture of the soil because it was that nice, kind of ideal condition.
Well drained.
Perfect. So we dealt with texture, and then we know that we're a little bit acid, so we're dealing with the pH, and now we're going to look at the actual nutrients that are in the soil.
Yes, which you have N, P, and K are our main nutrients.
Yeah.
Nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. When you're growing flowers, you need them all, but you don't need as much nitrogen as you would need as if you were growing a bunch of lettuce.
Okay.
You absolutely need a good bit of phosphorus.
Okay, so how does the nitrogen hinder the cut flower production, and how does the phosphorus aid?
Nitrogen causes leafy growth.
Okay, but no blooms.
No blooms.
Okay.
They all work together. You need the nitrogen, but if you have an overabundance of nitrogen, you're going to have leggy, weaker stems.
Well, that's what's happening with my cosmos right now. Like I have lots of leaf, but I'm not having the growth.
Buds.
Yeah, the buds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
You overfeed them with that.
Yes.
This area is known for being low in phosphorus.
Okay.
And so I'd like to touch on that. It can be noticeable to the point where there's a purple tinge on leaves if they are deficient. of it.
Okay.
They're not only like stunted and not as flowery, but their leaves are purple. It's not supposed to be that way. Another tricky thing about phosphorus is it is immobile in the soil.
Okay.
So you can't just sprinkle it around and think that you're going to correct it.
Okay.
You have to.
You really have to like
turn it
work
in
it
and
in.
bring it in. Yep. Even my professor at school said, just you got to dig a hole and stick it in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's an important thing to remember.
To remember.
Calcium, magnesium, and potassium, they're all very important roles, but phosphorus seems to be one of the things that's a little bit harder.
Sure.
Another one I'll touch on while we're here, and there's sunflowers. I can grow sunflowers here right now this season, but next year if I grow sunflowers here, I'll have to add boron.
Okay.
Sunflowers don't form if there is a boron deficiency.
And they kind of like eat it all, like this crop
they
will
eat it
all up.
And so will the
So we'll have to
kale,
replace it.
collards, all that. And it happens, if you're in the desert, you're good on boron. It happens where you are getting a lot of water. It just runs through. And even if you over boron, it'll work itself out very quickly with even
It's
a
kind of
hose.
like vitamin B. Yeah, in your body.
So
You get rid of what you don't need.
it goes away. All right.
Okay, perfect. So,
We're going to add the basics
okay,
today.
great.
We're going to start with, and this is all organic.
Okay.
So it makes it a little bit more difficult, but it makes it a lot easier to work with, maybe a little bit stinky sometimes.
Yeah.
We're going to do pelletized chicken manure,
Okay.
which is a good balance of NPK and calcium.
Okay.
They don't list their micronutrients on there except for the calcium, but I consider calcium very important. And even though, and I buy it on a pallet,
Okay.
it's a lot easier to do than non-pelletized chicken manure. I
Cool.
promise. I've done both.
Yeah.
I recommend this.
Yeah.
And what we're gonna do, you can help me in your white shirt, is one of these buckets. This bucket full will cover this will fill and amend a good 50-foot row.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
50 feet by how deep? 4? Or is this
2.
2?
Yep. It depends. You don't want to over beef, but since this, for me, this did have Christmas trees in it, I do want to kind of enrich it because there will always be flowers and vegetables here. And I think if you start, this is the first year on this field for me. And you just want to make you want the sweetest soil you can have.
Yeah.
And this is a good way to start it.
Okay.
So voila, we have our pelletized chicken manure. And then we have our ever expensive, and I must tell you, bone meal.
Okay.
This is the organic source, one of them, the main one, for phosphorus.
Okay.
It's slow release, but it is organic. This little baby costs,
It's really
$16 to
expensive.
$20.
Yeah.
Whereas 2.5 buckets of these, like maybe total 11.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. You have to have it for flowers.
Yeah. But the ratio of what you would need of bone meal to chicken manure is the same? Different?
I burn through this.
You burn through it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's deficient, you kind of have to really add to it.
Yeah.
But it's not mobile like boron, so it's not going to wash out. Once you get it in
Okay.
there,
It'll stick
it's going to
around.
stabilize it. And there are actually cover crops that will help fix it.
Okay.
Buckwheat
Okay.
fixes phosphorus.
Okay. So the bone meal functions as, you said, it stabilizes.
Well, it
The nutrients.
stabilizes in the soil, but
I
it
see what you're saying.
does is it creates strong stems.
Okay.
Strong stems, big flowers, and just a healthier plant. It also affects the root growth.
Okay.
And I can get into potassium, but these are the picky ones
Yeah.
for flower growing. If you have a burn pile, and this is potash, is what it's called, that's where you grow the best stuff. Grow it in the burn pile.
Okay.
because it's phosphorus, calcium, everything.
Everything.
Favorite other little amendments, and one is Epsoma. It's a company called Epsoma,
Okay.
and
I
they
think I just bought something from them.
they grow the tones. So you get
Yes.
flower tone, bulb tone,
Yes.
holly tone,
Lime.
citrus
maybe.
tone.
Yeah.
You can get phosphorus.
Mhm.
But this is flower tone.
Okay.
It has the major nutrients in it. It's not just NPK. It's the list
Yeah. And
of
all
all
the
the elements.
little ones. Uh-huh.
It also has beneficial mycorrhiza geared towards what you're growing,
Oh,
which
okay.
is the fungus
Oh,
that
okay.
is good in the soil for flowers
Okay.
or citrus.
So it's like
or bulbs.
probiotics for
Yes,
plants.
exactly.
Okay.
So I have flower tone, and then I have, well, we're going to call this azomite. It's a rare earth mineral.
Okay.
It is like the periodic table of elements, but just in tiny doses.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just a full amendment for the whole of the soil.
Okay.
They've decided that there are certain things that the plants have to have to live. Doesn't mean that they're not going to benefit from other things in the periodic table.
Sure.
And this is one of the things that includes everything.
Yeah.
There's even gold in it.
Yeah. She's a big fan of this. The azomite.
And I've actually done tests.
Uh-huh.
Like just field test of like kale side by side, poblano peppers side by side, zinnias side by side, and it is so amazing. Oh, and dahlias. They're so much stronger
Yeah.
and so much happier if they
Yeah.
have a good dose of azomite in them.
Okay.
I recommend it.
Okay. Great.
It's soil building.
Perfect.
You don't need a lot.
Perfect.
So that's what we're gonna do. We're
Okay.
gonna add stuff.
Perfect.
It's like baking a cake.
So if we're trying to figure out, like, maybe I have a space that's not as big as this space, like maybe I can write it down, but like the ratios of like how many scoops of this we need per square foot and those kinds of things, what you would recommend.
I would say, okay, if you had a nice plot, a 4x4 plot,
Okay.
I would add, if you really want to make it really happy, I would add about maybe 5 pounds of the chicken manure.
Okay.
I would add.
So you're like top dressing and then you're gonna like
fill
bake
it
the
in,
cake.
turn it in. So you'll do, if it's new soil and you have just a little test plot, I would do 5 pounds of the chicken manure, a good cup of the bone meal, half a cup of azomite, and you can do with the flower tone, you can do maybe a cup dressing, 2 cups dressing. It depends on your soil if it needs more building, or you can just put a little sprinkle in each hole
Oh, okay.
and mix it
As you're
in
going
as
through.
you plant.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's why I like it too. Is when I'm planting like plants that are a little bit bigger, and I'm having to dig a bigger hole and not just like a finger. I can kind of throw a little handful in there too, mix it around, and then get my plant in there. You just don't want it to. If you're using something like that, you just don't want to nuke it on top. You need to mix it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, it could burn. It could get really happy and suck it all up at once and just go.
Yep, that happened to me this year. Whenever I transplanted everything, all my stuff, I think I just like overfed
burns.
it and burned.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
And temperature has definitely, but mixing it in. I know it's easy to kind of get over eager. I would go with like the amounts that they recommend and first.
Yeah.
And then if you need to add a little side dressing, you can go back later.
Sure. Now, are there any of these things that if you overdid it, it would be like, ooh, bad news?
Well, I think I killed a hydrangea this spring
Okay.
because of the chicken manure.
Oh, okay.
It was thirsty, and I gave it lime, and it said, "Yay, I need
We'll take. I really needed that, and then it was like, I'll take.
And then I put
way
some
too many
chicken manure
things.
around it, and it said,
Uh-huh.
and it was 1 out of 6. So maybe it just was on its way out, but nitrogen will burn faster than anything, because if it's a good source of nitrogen or even a mediocre source, it will suck it up so quickly it will cook it. I think that nitrogen is probably going to be your biggest killer.
Yeah, and nitrogen plus lime, because lime helps you absorb all of your nutrients.
Exactly.
A little deadly combo.
Yeah, so you got to be careful.
Okay, perfect. Let's do it.
Yep. Very good.
Very good. Okay.
It's good even coating. It's like this, that's like my magic booster. It's like the baking soda.
Oh, yeah, it is. I could see that.
Whereas this is like the eggs. This is the chicken. But
We're going to go all in on the baking analogy. Yeah, so this was the flour tone. We just did one little cup of this. Little light dusting, about every, like 8 feet per cup.
Little zigzag.
That's what we were doing.
Yep. And this is one of those things that you can always go back mid-season.
Add a little bit more.
And top dress. It's great for that.
Because it'll rain and go down in. So top dressing works for this.
And heavy feeders, I would say like sunflowers. Well, if they're fast sunflowers, you don't need it. You just have to feed the stew out of them to begin with, because you're not going to have time. But dahlias, any type of perennial, and I would say zinnias as well. It's a good thing to go ahead and add some mid-season.
Yeah.
Just to give it a little extra boost to get you through the first frost or until you're tired of cutting them.
Yeah.
Which, who knows which comes first.
Whichever comes first.
Yeah. And this is bone meal. And I'm going to go ahead and say that just observing like this winter, this lower part of the field I saw purple weeds. So we don't have a ton of bone meal right now, but I'm going to focus my dosage down here, because this is where I think it needs it more.
We're going to plant.
Yeah. However, the chicken manure did have phosphorus in it, but this is a good, strong, extra source. It's
Energy
a
boost.
Yep. And so it's light, it's really dusty, so keep it close to the soil, so you don't lose any, because it's expensive too.
Yeah.
That's
That's what I didn't do right with the plant tone at first. Holding it too high.
Which just, I don't know which one of those nutrients tends to go through the air fastest, but it's probably the one that I really need.
Yeah, right.
If you're not having to certify organically, you can use triple phosphate.
Okay.
But it is strong, and so you have to do it in really low doses. But if you're in a situation
instead of bone meal, because it's cheaper.
It is cheaper.
Or what are the pros?
It is a lot cheaper, and it happens a lot faster.
Okay.
It's strong. Another organic source though is green sand.
Oh, okay.
It would take pallets of green sand for me to do what I needed to do here, because of the way our phosphorus is. All regions are different.
Okay.
What
is green sand?
Green sand is a mined sand.
Okay.
It's a mined earth.
As opposed to playbox sand.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
It literally has a
Very
green
tiny little
tinge.
rock.
And I think it's not like, this comes from basically the same place that the chicken manure comes from. It comes from processing.
Okay.
They're bones. It's bone meal. They're
Right.
ground down. Green sand is a mined element, and it just depends on where you are and what you have access to. If you need green sand and you're in the southeast, you're going to pay 5
a lot of money
times
because it's
on the
tons.
shipping.
Yeah.
So
Heavy.
You have to, think about your local sources of what you can do to amend your soil too, and I think that's an important thing to consider.
Yeah, would the extension office, like the local extension office, be a good resource for connecting you with those different places and sources to get them?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And like our local extension agency has a alternative farming.
Okay.
advisor,
Uh-huh.
and he helps with people that are certifying organically
Mm-hmm.
or like to use organic, even if they're not interested in certifying.
Sure.
And then there's the regular office. They're both wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Ours are. But they both have wonderful resources and classes to help you learn about
your
your region.
area.
And even
Yeah, I think
they,
they're such a great resource.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they usually know the people in your area who supply
Sure.
the things that you need.
Sure.
So go to them.
Yeah.
They even do the garden masters.
Yeah, Master Gardeners.
Master gardeners, that's your local.
Great resource as well. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So,
Okay.
all right,
You got it all?
yeah. Well, we're gonna add a little azomite, just to add it, and then David's gonna come through and till it, and we're gonna.
What do we do if we don't have a David?
You get a little tiller, or I did not bring my. You do it by hand.
By hand. I have one of those little, like,
Mantis.
it looks like a lawnmower. Well, I have the little mantis. Mm-hmm. And then I also have this little thing that looks like one of those push lawnmowers. That's just like all the little, like, tines, which works for my little boxes.
I
you know, that
recommend
have.
the mantis.
I probably would, like, break my boxes with the mantis.
Nope.
No?
No, I use it in
really?
my little boxes.
Okay.
But the mantis is awesome.
Yeah, very
you can-
versatile, and they're not too hard to like manage. Once you get like the real big ones, like I can't manage those, but I can manage a mantis.
Yes. And it does a lot of work. I mean, I could go back and forth with my mantis. It is, I think, more efficient than a rear tine tiller sometimes. The rear tine tillers, some like leave gaps, they're slow, I can't, with the mantis, I can actually like hoe
Yeah,
with
yeah,
it
really get it
and
in there.
pull the bed together. I can do all the work with it. It's a little thing and it's easy, but then there's a tiller on a tractor. This is a simple, quick system to set your lines. If you are planting or laying horizontal netting, we're using hoops that have been, they're conduit. They've been built with a hoop, bent with a hoop bender. This is
So-
rebar.
These, do you buy these bent?
No.
You have to buy this at Lowe's straight, and then you bend it
Yes.
on a hoop
Bender, which you can purchase through Johnny's Seeds.
Okay.
They actually have several sizes.
Okay.
You can do a smaller one, which will bend up to, I think, an inch thick. But they also have some that will bend conduit for caterpillar tunnels,
Oh wow.
which is, these are low tunnels, or these are made for low tunnels or bent for low tunnels. Caterpillar tunnels are for the kind that you can walk through.
Sure.
And I just don't do that type of large scale. I like these, if I were to set up a cover over this area, I like low profile because of our winter winds.
Yeah.
I think the caterpillars are great for possibly that if you have a good anchor. But
Yeah.
I'm going for hardcore winter protection.
Sure.
But what we're doing today with the snapdragon planting is using this as multifunction, adjustable holding for our horizontal netting for our snapdragons. Because our snapdragons, if they fall over, they don't fall back up.
No.
And if they fall over, they do this. And you
Yes.
just get no fun.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't stake mine. That's what happened.
That's what happens.
To all of them.
Yes.
So I just pulled them all out
oh,
yesterday. Yeah,
but they went
it's
a
okay.
long time.
They did. Yeah, they did.
And those are like the rejects that you got too, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, they went.
I had 4 major cuttings out of the crop I put in.
Yeah.
So with Chantilly snaps, it's my first time to have the patience to go through that.
Yeah, little seeds.
I was excited.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so we bent our rebar with our.
this is no.
No,
This
our
is conduit.
conduit.
This is conduit.
Right.
It's bent. It's roughly 4 feet wide now. This
Johnny's seeds.
Johnny's Seeds. This is rebar. This kind of stake with the arrow in it is generally used for electric fencing, like just pop up quick electric fencing. But I use this in
Lowe's?
the field. Lowe's, yes. You
Hardware.
get these at Lowe's. We've already preset 18-inch shorter pieces of rebar that we're going to slide the conduit onto.
As your anchor. Yep.
These longer pieces of rebar and this string I've used in this field repetitively since April. This is how I mark my lines and keep my bed widths
Consistent and neat and tidy.
So
which is great because whenever you're organized and everything's straight going in, like you can really pack the plants and make the most of the ground that you do have to work with.
Exactly. Okay, so we're laying this on, we're gonna make it tight. You're gonna hook, just lay your hands on the corners of the rebar. David's gonna help you and make them tight. You get that corner, of course it's the broken one. The tighter the better with this stuff, I've learned. It's plastic, so if it's not tight, it tends to get a little squirrely very quickly.
Nice and tight.
All right.
And what did you tell me this was? This is
horizontal netting.
Horizontal netting, as opposed to the, or no, is this vertical?
This has been amended. This was vertical netting. It was 10 feet high. And I cut it,
Yeah.
I think with the horizontal netting that you can purchase from Johnny's, it's more of a square grid. But I had a good 100 feet of this, so I cut it.
Using what we have.
Yeah, and we're gonna just lower. It's good and tight. Yay! We're gonna use this as our planting grid.
Okay.
So this kind of does double duty. We're gonna take our snapdragons.
Put it right down on the ground.
On the ground. We're gonna put our snaps in, and then once our snaps are in, we're gonna put our hoops on, and then raise this netting up. And as they grow, we can raise them up a little bit more to hold at their height.
Okay, perfect. So you just raise it as the plants are growing.
With the hoops too, I use the hoops. I've noticed, this is the first time I've really put this out. If you have a big wind in the spring, if you had just this, it would be goodbye netting.
Yeah.
This, actually, it kind of like moved.
Okay.
But it didn't fly away. What I did later in the season is I took the hoops out just so I could get in and out. And I had this up, and for security, I zip tied it to make sure it was tight and didn't get knocked out of place. And that helped it stay. But I hit a point with the hoops being here. We're gonna overwinter these snapdragons. So this not only provides horizontal support, it's also going to provide a cage for either greenhouse plastic or remay or growing fabric, which just gives it frost protection.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. And then that's when you use all your extra rocks to weigh down the edges. Yep. Save the big ones for the
random
end.
bricks left over from something.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna put these in there, tuck them in.
Tuck the little plants in.
Okay.
Specialty Cut Flowers book is a heavy hand book for me, and I highly recommend it for anybody that's seriously trying to grow.
And he wrote that book. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, he and another lady, and I can't remember her name right now, and then she's wonderful too. But his books are, I can't do without him.
Yeah.
His perennial book and his professional cut flower, specialty professional cut flower.
Yeah.
But the recommended spacing, and it's a group effort, by the way. They did, they used input from flower growers across the country and their experiences, and they have them in notes, and they definitely rely on having it as a group
effort,
publication.
one month.
So
great.
because we can't all, I mean, you
Can't all know everything.
Nope,
That
and you-
is for sure.
you can't test certain things in Athens, Georgia and expect them to grow in Spokane, Washington. So
Right.
I do plant in rainbows. It helps me organize mentally, and it also helps me when I'm cutting
Yeah.
large groups of things. So we're starting with purple and going to velvet and then red and bronze, salmon, etc. These are going to be roughly 8 inches apart. And we're just going to use the grids. So we're going to do this, y'all. And they're kind of 8 inches apart, but kind of not. There might be some losses, but we're going to lay them out that way. I kind of do this a little ahead of time, and then you can kind of throw your little babies in there. I try to get all of one color done first. And these look terrible right now, but oh my gosh, I can't wait till we come
once
back
they
in a
get
week or two.
Yeah. They'll take off.
And so we're just gonna lay them down.
Oh, I meant to ask you, like, temperature and weather, like, when is the ideal time? Like, if like we had to cancel earlier because it was too wet to do this, like,
Yes.
what would be the best way so that the plants aren't shocked? Like, if you're looking at your calendar for the week and you're trying to pick the best case scenario, what's ideal?
So with this field, since we don't have a direct like water hose, water source, it's all has to be brought up from the spring down below.
Okay.
You plant it right before a few days of rain,
I got it.
and it's going to be naturally,
Taken care of.
yes. That's important. Getting things watered in is,
So would you say like the first week is like really, really crucial for like the water?
yes.
For them being set in?
Yes, I would say the first week, if you can get, even if it's really dry, I can't speak for a desert region, but if you're in an area like this where we've had very dry periods, but when we do get rain, we'll get a good inch or two. You have to just you have to give it a week, 10 days. And those are the times, if I don't have access with a
I'm just
hose,
gonna keep making
if
circles.
I can't do a hose, I fill up my backpack sprayer with water, and I go along and I take off the spray nozzle, and if I can give it just a localized squirt of water
That helps a lot.
every other day, if I can get it through that first 10 days, it's usually golden.
Yeah.
After that, I'm just about trying to compete with the weeds, because the weeds don't seem to mind the fact that there's no rain.
I know. That's
They're
always fun how
fine.
that happens, isn't it?
So, but if you're really doing a lot of planting and don't have that kind of access to water, and you don't have the time to go in and do the hand watering, time it before a big rain. And they'll get watered in, and your likelihood of survival is going to be good.
Much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
What
these
would you
are
say,
going,
is there like a survival rate that you typically see with whenever you're planting, like out of everything that we do today, like will you lose a few of these little babies along the way? Like what's normal to lose?
I have one of those in my head from landscaping for many years, which I usually beat it on landscaping. My percentage is really low on landscaping, but I think an average that you should consider is 15%.
Okay.
If you lose, and yeah, I think you should go for 85% survival rate. That's a good number. You know, if you're doing sunflowers, these pro cuts, they're geared towards stick it in the ground. They'll be done in less than 2 months. That should be like a 95% survival rate. But I think with smaller, less vigorous plants, 85 is good. Because sometimes, as we've talked about with like the marigolds being bad seeds, sometimes you'll just get little genetic glitches.
Yeah.
And you want to pull them out.
Right.
And you don't want to keep them around. And
Right.
so I would say that factors into that percentage as well.
Right.